Hey guys, so we're gonna be running into JPR, Pokemon Poke Game Fed Off. True. It's very weird now thinking about it. A lot of them. And then you got the remaster, remade sites still. True. Sure. That's shiny Hyster, True. Pokemon Go is pretty good though. The battle sound, ooh. No, the battle tree in Sun and Moon though is good. I hope you talk about that a bit. I do love that a lot. Definitely an improvement. Especially for like single player mode. So who don't play like multiplayer often. Ooh, my nose. Yeah, DLC. The DLC doesn't get a count.
Exquisitely.
Yeah, I'm gonna skip the sponsor.
Video because natural materials 2 to 5 bit.
Yep, I was seeing the video, so
Making the holiday season just a
before watching this.
Written on the box, gotta catch them all. This wasn't just the game's catchy
True.
slogan, it was literally the end goal of the original games. In fact,
Did it?
never at
I mean,
any
it
point does
kind of
Professor
taking the
Oak or
guy
any
post
other
game.
adult tell you to fight the Mafia,
More or less.
collect gym badges and become the greatest trainer. That all just sort of happens along the way. Catching all 150 Pokemon, or 151 if you want to be fancy about it, is the goal. And it's something that's unlikely to be accomplished in the main campaign alone. Actually, it's literally impossible because you can't even catch Mewtwo until after the League. But yeah, the first real post-game content the series had to offer was in the second generation with Gold and Silver.
Oh,
Man,
yeah, you
what
can
a
go
jump
to
it was.
Kanto.
There's almost as much post-game content
Yeah,
here
dope.
as there
That
is
was
in the
dope.
main campaign.
Yeah,
Heck,
I
there's
love
so
to go
much
to
that
Pokemon
most people say
Crystal.
that the best thing about Johto
Also
is
might
just
have
getting back to
some
Kanto.
gameplay videos
Ignoring the
up
fact
here.
that being able to fit 2 regions into
Maybe.
one
Or
game
are they
color
going on
cartridge is
here?
an absolute technical marvel in itself. Gold and Silver truly set the standard for post-game content
But
in
yeah,
Pokemon.
don't know when they're
Maybe
going.
a
I
little
hope you get
too
on
early,
Monday,
though, because I
Tuesday,
feel like we
not
haven't
this
gotten
weekend.
this much ever again. And
Maybe,
in case
not
that
this
wasn't
one,
enough,
maybe.
Crystal
Maybe.
also went and added a Pokemon staple, the
Maybe
Battle
this one.
Tower.
On
Even though,
Sunday
if I'm
or
being
Monday.
completely honest, I never really
basically.
cared for this place unless it was part of a Battle Frontier. But the Battle Tower just doubled down the idea that Pokemon is truly an infinite game. If you just want to battle until the end of time and do nothing else, you can
Oh,
do it.
yeah,
here.
the Silver-
Also, somehow the Battle
Can-
Tower
can you
ended up being
battle,
like
like,
the
Red
only
or something,
post-game
among
content
Silver or
we got
something like
Ruby and
that?
Sapphire, and I do
That
not
was
know
pretty
how
good.
that happened. It was like Game Freak said, oh, you guys actually wanted more of that stuff we did in Gen 2? Oh, we only planned on doing that once. Oops.
Sure.
But hey, nobody cares because Pokemon Emerald gives
Sure,
the
nobody
Battle Frontier.
cares.
All is forgiven. Starting in Gen 4, though, we enter what I like to call the golden age of post-game content. And I think it's a large part of the reason why so many fans look back on the
Then we got
DS game so fondly
Shaman.
now. Even Diamond and Pearl, which
I
have
think we
like
got that.
one
I
of
was
the most
using
dookie main
well, we were
campaigns in
supposed
any
to
Pokemon
find
game,
something, but
maybe the dookiest.
I think that Around
I feel
has
like people kind of
they kept
overlook
it in
it
or
because
something.
there's so
I
much
remember or something
post-game
like that.
content. Although those games do have that stupid restriction where you have to see all the Pokemon in the Sinnoh Dex before you can get your National Pokedex and actually start the
Sure.
first game, 10-year-old me had to go buy one of those strategy guide books from GameStop because I didn't know how in the heck you were supposed to find Lumineon. It's a money-making conspiracy, I tell you! But yeah, these games, Platinum, Heart Gold and Soul Silver, Black and White, Black 2 and White 2, all of these games are absolutely packed to the brim with
Fantastic.
post-game content. Sinnoh's got this whole entire island up here. They got tons of legendaries to find. I
True.
mean, new legendaries.
Oh, yeah, wasn't there
not
a Battle
recycled
Frontier
ones
in
like all the
Gen
new
4
games
too?
have. There's
Or wherever
another Battle
the-
Frontier, Infinite Rival
Yeah, Battle Frontier.
rematches, and there's an entire storyline revolving around Stark Mountain and Team Galactic. Black and White.
That one I
has
did
all
not
of
know about.
Eastern Unova to explore, new areas open up.
Oh,
like
yeah,
Challenge
it's in
Cave and the
Unova.
Royal Unova. There's the Sages and Looker storyline. You can actually
Look-
go back
oh,
and
yeah,
fight all
yo,
of them.
the
You
Lookers
can
are
grind
there
to fight
too.
Cynthia. And Black
Oh,
2
yeah,
White 2
I know
has
they did that.
almost all
The
of this,
War
plus the
Tournament.
EWT, White Tree
Yeah, that was
Hollow,
dope.
Black Skyscraper, End's Castle Returns.
That
These
too.
titles seriously contend with Heart Gold and Soul Silver when it
I
comes to
need
sheer
I need to go
amount
back
of
and play
post-game
some
content.
Lions.
If you put
Well,
me
White
on a
Blaze
deserted
Black.
island with nothing but a DS, a copy of Heart Gold, and a
I might
copy
do like a
of
speed
White
run
2,
through them.
you would also
something.
probably need to give me a charger
I
and
see,
electricity
I see,
because I'm
I
going to be
see.
playing these games for a while. X and Y sees a bit of a regression when it comes to post-game content, but for the most part, it's
Sure.
still pretty decent. These games don't give you a whole new portion of the region to
That
explore
automatic
like
sound
Johto,
maybe
Sinnoh,
counts.
and Unova-based games did, but they do have the Looker missions, the Megastone collecting, and the Battle
Yeah,
Baton.
that's
It
what
may
I'm
not
saying.
be as interesting post-game content as the DS titles, but there's still a lot to do here. I'm also convinced that the reason why Game Freak made shiny hunting so much easier to do starting in this gen is because they genuinely see shiny hunting as just as important of a post-game activity as the battle facilities or anything related to the
Let's
story.
go, got great
Sun
shiny
and Moon
hunting.
followed suit, also having some looker missions
Oh,
and unlocking
yeah,
a portion of Pony
yeah,
Island, but
yeah.
not too much
Also, we
else.
got the-
Gen 6
in the
and
Ultra game, we
7
got the
also
Ultra Run
decided to
Hunts
make
and
the
stuff.
post-game stories into proper episodes, like the Delta episode, the Ultra Beast episode, and the Rainbow Rocket episode. I think this approach
Yeah,
to post-game
I think it
content
kinda
is
counts.
definitely decent. I kind
The
of
DLC
prefer
like
finding this
things.
stuff on my own, like Ents Castle and Black 2 and White 2, or Red on Mount Silver. I feel like that makes the post-game feel like it has more mystique.
But Nintendo
It
actually
makes you
did.
want to double-check every area
Pokemon
of the
actually
game
did
to
it.
make sure you didn't miss anything,
think
instead of it
Nintendo
all
did
just
it
being
too.
presented
I don't
to you
think
in a
Nintendo had
neat little
DLC, yeah.
2-hour bundle of story.
So DLC wasn't
There's
really a
pros
day
and
off for
cons, but
Nintendo
both ways are
to
good, I would say.
Switch.
But the biggest problem here is that starting in X and Y, Game Freak stopped giving us entirely new areas designed for the post-game. Whether it was the entire region of Kanto, the Sevi Islands, the battle area,
Oh,
or
yeah, the
Eastern
Seven
Unova,
Islands.
they always
Yeah,
excelled
never finished
in
with them,
creating
but
new,
I heard
interesting
good thing
areas
about
to
it.
explore.
Hey,
Kyle
Mew,
City
Mew
and
got
half
something
of
to do
Pony
with it.
Island
Then you can
just
catch
don't
one of them
have
on
that
Mew,
same
a Mew or
oomph
something like
to
that.
it. Now, if X
Oh,
and Y
yeah,
is where I
Blue
started
and,
getting concerned about
Red Dead
post-games,
Return.
then Sword and Shield is where I accepted their death. While these games do have the whole
Yeah.
epilogue with Swordward and Shieldbert, unfortunately, post-game really
Unfortunately,
just
yeah.
boils down to the battle tower and collecting all the
Oh, yeah, I forgot what Tyre
cards,
said.
I guess.
Yeah.
Beyond that, there is virtually nothing to do. And that's because
Yeah, it
starting
kinda
in
like
this
Blizzard.
generation, Game Freak would basically start selling us post-game
then you
content
count
in the form
DLC.
of DLC, as
Yeah.
both Sword and Shield and the Gen 9 games of Scarlet and Violet later
Which
came
is
with a
fantastic.
two-part expansion. Part 1 of both DLCs is a little weird though. They're designed more as supplemental content to the main
Sure.
story than post-game material, as evidenced by the abundance of unevolved Pokemon and the levels being drastically lower if you start the DLC before entering the Hall of Fame. Part 2 of these DLCs, being the Crown
But it's pretty
Tundra
cool.
and Indigo
But the
Disc,
second
serve
part
more
being
as the
dope.
actual post-game content, with more challenging fights, higher level Pokemon, and usually a
Legendary.
wide array of legendaries to hunt down. Now I'll be
And stuff. Sorry about that. But YouTube gotta get paid.
Now, I'll be honest, I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the DLC model so far. Part
True,
1 of
true,
both DLCs
true. We
have
got,
been
like,
pretty
what,
meh,
2?
and both Part 2s I definitely enjoyed a lot more. So before you trot off to the
Obviously.
comments and say that all
Also,
I
the
ever do is
Fossil
complain
Pokemon
about
were
other
in the Crown
Pokemon,
Tundra
let
as
me
well.
be abundantly clear. I liked the Crown Tundra, and I liked the Indigo Disc. But what makes this argument so tricky is the fact that DLC
Also, I do like the
hasn't
flying
just
and,
replaced the
wonky.
post-game content, but it has also replaced
Also, we
the
get to
dreaded
go
third
follow to
version
Area
games.
Zero, so that
Now,
was cool.
admittedly, a lot of us,
I do enjoy that
myself
on my
included,
time.
look back on
So
these
you
third
randomly
version
going
games
through
with rose-tinted glasses
Area
because
Zero.
they are the definitive, most replayable versions of those regions. When talking about
Also, you can,
Omen or
tear
Sinnoh,
wherever
I
you want
always
without
talk about
charging
how
it.
much I love
And no, don't
Emerald
tear it
and
unless
Platinum. It's
a
never
random
about the
Pokemon
duo
get mad at
games
me
that
or
we're
something
seeing.
ran into me.
I feel like third version
Now just be
games are
extra
always
and just
hated
tear up.
whenever they're announced or released, and then people quickly stop talking about them, and then
Good
10
man,
years
what are you
later,
doing?
everybody loves them because they don't remember
You wanna
being
fight, you gonna
scammed
get a
for
fight.
$40 more.
And then I go overkill.
Because, let's face it, enhanced
Oh, yeah,
versions
the
were
Ultra
basically just them
Wormholes were
saying,
pretty cool.
Hey guys, you want some more
Rainbow
Pokemon?
Rocket, I
Well,
love it.
here's the same game you just played,
Ultra
but we
Necrozma
actually
and
finished it
stuff.
this time. So on one hand, I am
Yeah,
glad
third
the
version kinda
DLC
went like
model
that.
exists. I think the content that you get from the DLC is definitely worth the $30 you have to spend, but at the
Definitely
same
is.
time, I hate that it has to come at the expense of
True.
actual post-game content. Like, the core games are going to be $60 no matter what, maybe even $70 in the Switch 2 because that's just the way the video games
Maybe.
are nowadays. And no
And that
amount
would
of
be tough.
moaning and groaning is ever going to change that fact. What I don't like is that my $60 game comes with less content in it than Black and White on the DS.
Sally.
And then after spending another $30, then it arguably has a similar amount of content. The only real positive is that we
Arguably.
erased an
Very
enhanced
arguably.
version along the way, but even then, the DLC can't do everything an enhanced version was able to do. One of the nicest things about having enhanced versions, as slimy as they were, was that if there was something really not great about the main story, then it had an opportunity to change it.
True.
DLC is just additional content. It doesn't refine or fix anything wrong with the main story. Like the Scarlet
Yeah,
and
it's
Violet
true.
main campaign we got is the one we're keeping. It will never be improved upon. Also, DLC argument aside, there are some very basic things that just ought to be a part of every Pokemon postgame. Such as gym leader rematches,
True,
rival
true.
rematches
true.
with anybody, honestly.
Actually, they come with the
Thankfully,
territory.
this is something that Scarlet and Violet actually did right. You can rematch every gym leader, every team star leader, every rival/friendly character.
I
and
do
even
love
school
that, though.
teachers and Gita through the Ace Academy tournament.
I was like, I forgot you can do that.
It's the only Elite
I had to
Four
go back
you
and
can
do
rematch,
it
at least until the
to
Blueberry Academy came
play
along.
that second
Though, if
part
I'm
of the
being
game.
honest,
I
I
think
think the only reason
second part of the
Scarlet and
DLC.
Violet made sure to include all of these rematches is because there is literally nothing else to do outside
Oh,
the
I
DLC. No,
was
Area
the
Zero's first visit
the
and
Passion
the AI
event.
Professor don't count. The credits literally don't
It might
roll
be
until
that.
after it. I don't care if it happens after the league. Another thing that would be a nice time killer is some sort of side activity. Like, let's be honest, most of us didn't do Pokemon contests or Pokestar Studios or Pokeathlon.
I low-key did Pokemon contests, but
those
that's just
were all
me.
things we completed in the post game. Though, if I'm being completely honest, I never finished
But,
Pokestar Studios.
oh yeah, I did
That was
Pokestar
maybe one
Studios
thing for
too.
Black
Yeah,
and White 2 that I was
yeah, I
really
would have had to have
interested in.
fun on the
Ever
wrong
since
hats.
Kalos, we really haven't had one of these neat side career activity thingies. Doesn't Game Freak know that every Gen
True.
Zer needs a second job to do? Really, a good Pokemon postgame relies on 4 pillars. A handful of new areas to explore that are free, not paid
That's
DLC.
free, that's a free
Some
not
side
DLC.
activity to go back and complete, or at least a
True.
battle facility, which Scarlet and Violet surprisingly never received. Rematches with most, if not all, NPCs.
True.
And a somewhat satisfying and fulfilling legendary Pokemon hunt. But since Generation
Sure.
6, every single game
Kinda
seems to be
got
missing at least one of these pillars.
bit-
More often than not, multiple of them.
recatch up
But
with legendaries and
unfortunately,
stuff.
this is a problem I don't see any real solution to. While I've outlined what I think would make for an ideal
And,
Pokemon
the
postgame,
Scarlet
at
Violet
this
DLC.
point, I think we just have to accept that the bulk of postgame content is just going to be sold to us as DLC until the end of time.
Pretty
Unless
much.
it's a game like Legends Arceus, which actually does have a pretty decent postgame, even
True,
if it is
true.
just
I was about to
crammed
say
onto
that too.
one storyline. It still lacks any
Not my
new
type of
areas to
game, but I do
explore, which is its
remember
biggest
that's the
shortcoming.
game.
But I think it just reaffirms that DLC is always going to be the biggest enemy of postgame content. Again, I think there are pros and cons of the DLC model.
Obviously, but yeah, did that video make sure to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, so I don't know our video. Peace.